So one thing we know is that the brain is not fully developed at birth. I like to say, never of us have ever met a baby who's come out of the birth canal, come out of the womb, walked to the kitchen, cracked open a beer and said, "What's for dinner?" Right? The brain is not fully developed at birth. Rather, it develops like a flower, from the bottom up, from the back to the front, from the inside out, from right to left. And it develops based off of the information that it receives right from the birth process. So if we could look at from zero to adulthood, there are different tools that develop during our life. We start operating in the world very reflexively, something we would call infantile movement reflexes. From there, we develop our movement and touch, which becomes our primary seat. From there, we develop auditory and verbal, and then from there, what we do is we move into a visual and cognitive pathway. That is the neurotypical way that the brain develops. But for many of the kids that we get to meet in the world, they aren't necessarily here yet at the appropriate time. Obviously, when we get to school, we should be able to process and have our primary seat of the way we process, engage with, and learn with our world be visually. That's why we have to sit there and look at a blackboard. But for many kids, for some reason, there is something that deflected them off of the normal path of development. Maybe they're stuck in this movement touch. They have to keep moving. They can't sit still. They have to touch everything. And that's how they engage with their world. So the important thing is what we have to look at is what could impact our path of brain development. The most important thing that we look at is that stress, the research shows, can actually impact how the brain develops. Now, most of us think about stress like an emotional stress, and that is a big, huge part. But stress comes in three ways. It comes physically, it comes chemically, and it comes emotionally. Easy way to put that is the 3 T's: traumas, toxins, and thoughts. Now, we can look at decreasing toxins in our life, huge. Emotional stress we can work with. There's lots of different things, but the physical stress, I feel, is one of the most overlooked aspects of how stress impacts development. Now, as a pediatric, as a brain-based, as a neurologically based chiropractor, I have to look at and see how the spine, how the alignment of the spine, and how stresses on the spine can impact brain development, because I see it each and every day. In fact, the largest way that we actually see this occur is through something called birth trauma. The beautiful thing is that birth is a natural, amazing process, and the research shows that the more intervention that is often used during birth, the more likely we are to have stress, strain, misalignments of the spine. Now, sometimes that can show up as a torticollis, difficulty turning our head from side to side. It can show up as plagiocephaly or flat head syndrome, and we are talking about those things, but we're talking about less subtle as well. In fact, subluxation is a misalignment of the spine that will now impact how information from the brain through development is able to reach the brain, can cause an imbalance of information, a concept known as disafferentation, and can actually lead to deflections on the trajectory of brain development. So if you're seeing any of these issues and you know going back that there was a major physical trauma or a major birth trauma, whether it's a cesarean section or whether it is aggressive forceps or vacuum, sure, maybe these things were used as a life-saving procedure, and I hope that they were. Gosh, we're so glad that baby's here. But maybe, just maybe, we have a misalignment and imbalance in the spine that's impacting how the brain is receiving information from the body, and maybe aligning that, taking tension off the nervous system, getting the body out of a state of fight or flight into a state of resting, digesting, and healing, maybe that is the next key to unlocking this developmental pathway. If this piques your interest, we have a workshop coming up called Unraveling Neurodevelopmental Disorders, and I would love to have you there to learn more about this concept, how this brain trajectory occurs, and how we can understand and utilize our different tools to really work with each of our children, not to treat any symptom, not to change any label, but to simply unlock their healing so they can be the best version of themselves.